Welcome to a beginner's tutorial on exterior rendering with D5. We'll start modeling from scratch and walk you through the process to create a rendering like this.
Over the past few months, D5 has become a well-recognized name in the architecture community. This is because of its incredibly simple workflow and its constant updates. The version 2.7 has introduced some impressive features, including some AI-powered options that make the visualization process exciting. I have been using it for a while now, and I've been impressed by how quickly you could create great looking renders in a really short span of time. It also has real-time rendering, which means you can see the result of your render as you're working on it. It really explains why D5 was rated the #1 architectural rendering software in 2023. So let's walk through the process of creating a rendering and explore all these amazing features. I'm Salman, an architect and an illustrator. If you're new to the channel, make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell icon for notifications. So let's get started. You can install the free version of D5 software from the link in the description. By accessing it, you also get a free trial of D5 Pro version for 8 days. You can check the system requirements from the FAQ listed right below. After a successful installation, this is what the homepage will look like. We can start a new project from the New tab on the top. Once you open it, you see the beginner's guide on the main screen. This will give you the information about the basic interface of D5. On the top left, we have a selection tools, and on the right side, we have options to adjust the camera, display, and navigation. The toolbar on top has options to add lights, path settings, and particles. And to move around the object, we can use the center mouse button, and to fly through the model, we have our keyboard keys, which are WSAD, and to adjust the heights, we can use Q and E. On the top left, we have the Assets tab, which has materials, models, particles, and so on. The toolbar on the right side has Environment Effects, and also the Inspector tab to adjust the settings of any object. We will look at all of these settings in detail as we progress along. For this demonstration, we'll be creating a rendering of Villa in Sicily by DAP Studio. We'll only be using the project as a reference and try to create scenes that are unique. However, if you're working on a design from scratch and you need inspiration, you can use this tool called D5 High that is available through d5dext.ai. Using this tool, we could use prompts to generate examples to the composition, framing, or the design itself. It has a pretty simple and straightforward interface, just like the other AI platforms we saw on the previous videos. The render output are also in a typical style of architectural visualization. It does seem that in future, this tool will be available within the D5 software, making it much easier to access. You can use any of your preferred rendering software to create the model of this reference. I'll be using SketchUp for this demonstration. I've downloaded some drawings of the project from ArcDaily, so we can use that as reference and scale to create this model. We'll only be creating an exterior scene for this demonstration, so let's focus on the elements outside the building. We have created the basic form in SketchUp. While we are modeling, let's also look at an amazing feature in D5 called Live Sync. And using this plugin, we can sync our SketchUp model with the D5 software in real time. To download the plugin, we can head over to the D5 software, and under the Workflow tab, we have the option to download it for either SketchUp, 3ds Max, Rhino, and the list goes on. And another way to download it is to go to d5render.com/download, and here you can download it for your preferred software as well. Once you download it and install, you might have to restart your SketchUp file and you will see the D5 toolbar in your SketchUp. Now to sync the SketchUp model with D5, all we have to do is to press the first button and it will automatically show a dialog box, and following that, we'll be able to open D5 with this model in the viewport. Now as we pan through our SketchUp model, we can notice that D5 not just syncs with the model volume, and also the angles from which we are viewing the model in SketchUp. So this plugin actually syncs the SketchUp model in real time. This feature can be really helpful when we want to see what the SketchUp model will look like in the rendering software. You can also work simultaneously with SketchUp and D5 open in two different monitors. In case you want to pause this live sync, you can use the second button on this D5 toolbar. And you can disable the live sync using the third button. The rest of the toolbars include options to sync the scene that we're setting in SketchUp, light settings that we can add to the SketchUp model. Once done with the main building volume, let's start creating the side contours. Now I wouldn't be detailing the side contours too much for this demonstration, so let's focus only on the areas that are relevant. Now let's start adding materials to the SketchUp model. Once the modeling is done, we now need to add materials to the SketchUp model. And quite obviously, once we add colors to the SketchUp model, it gets live synced with D5 quite effortlessly. So let's mark each individual part of the model with different colors as we do in any rendering software. All of these colors can be replaced from the material library in D5. And before diving into D5, I would like to make sure that the model is well detailed, because adding details in a model plays a significant role in the realism of the render.
So we added these wooden fluted panels on the elevation and the sliding doors, window frames to make them more credible, rectangles in the ceiling which can be the lights, and also a simple face here which can be replaced with a mesh texture as in the reference image. Let's go back to D5 and we can notice that all the materials that we added in the SketchUp file has been synced perfectly in the viewport. Let's see how to add materials in D5. To start adding the materials, we need to head over to the Assets option on top. This opens the D5 Asset Library, which has quite an extensive library to choose from. On the left, we have materials in different categories like ceramic, concrete, and so on. Let's begin with the wooden texture on the facade. Once we click that, we have different wooden PBR textures that we can add into the model. To add a material, all we have to do is to click it, wait for it to download, and then click the material selection in the model. And there you have it. To make any edits or changes of this specific material, we just have to click over it in the model. And we have this inspector tab on the right side. We have different maps for this material, which is pretty common on all render engines. Now, if you already know how these material maps work, you'll be able to figure this out quite easily. Below that, we have the UV tab, where we can adjust the scale of the material or change the direction. Similarly, let's add a wooden texture flooring. To adjust the color of any material, we can choose this button, which opens the color palette. Similarly, let's look for a metal texture for these columns, and I have picked the brushed aluminum material. Let's adjust the settings to make it a little darker, and next is the glass texture. Glass being an important architectural element, there must be obviously quite a variation of glasses as well. For this one, let's pick the normal glass. Let's make sure to turn on the thickness of the glass material. Let's add a matte metal to the window frame as well. Let's look at how to add a custom material from an image in Local Drive. To do that, let's select the material in the model. And on the right side, we have an option called Material Template. Under that, we have multiple categories of default materials to choose from, like water, car paint, clothes, multimedia, which is used for adding images or videos, and so on. Let's choose a custom template. Inside the base color map, let's choose this icon and upload the texture image from the local drive. Upon first look, there are two problems with the material that we have added. The first being that the texture is of low quality, and the second that it's not seamless.
Now this is exactly where D5 offers an amazing solution using artificial intelligence.
Head over to this small button right next to the image that we uploaded. Under that, we have two options, Ultra HD Texture and Make Seamless, which could offer the solution. Let's choose Ultra HD Texture, and you can notice that the texture on the material looks a lot better now. The wooden grains on this texture is now evidently visible, and using AI, this has been made into a high quality. Now let's also make it seamless using the next option. Once you click that, it opens a tab where we can choose between the horizontal and vertical edges of the texture. Click Make Seamless, and we can notice instantly that the texture has become completely seamless.
Previously, the process of making a texture look better would be a very tedious process, and we'll have to import it into Photoshop to make it seamless and increase the quality. But with the latest version of D5, this process has been made really easy with the power of artificial intelligence. We've been seeing how AI can make complex tasks easy for us, and this right here is a live example. And not just that, we have yet another feature that can create texture maps with AI. This feature of AI generated texture map is located on the top of the Inspector tab. All we have to do is to just click that, and this will instantly generate a texture map for the material that we used. Here's a before and after using this feature. There are other features as well, which offers complete customization of the materials like the triplanar or the UV randomizer. Let's add a concrete texture for the main facade and adjust the scale. For the handrail on top, let's head over to the material tab and pick the wire mesh. And we might have to scale it to fit the area that we're using it on. I'm adding a stone texture from an image in the local drive, and here's a problem that some of us might face frequently. Some parts of the material might look stretched, and that is probably because we might have stretched that in the SketchUp model while doing it. To fix that, all we have to do is to go back to SketchUp, explore the group which has this issue, and make it into a group once again. Now for this stone texture, we've chosen the displacement map, and that comes with an option to adjust the height of the material as well. And this option of a round corner is quite important in visualization, since most of the materials that we see in real life do not have perfect 90-degree edges. Now let's add grass texture on the foreground and around the side. D5 offers some very interesting grass textures to choose from.
So let's select the material and go to Material Template and choose Grass. Once we select, it automatically generates to all the material selection. Here we have 6 different types of grass to choose from, and each of these are made of different styles and colors. We also have a lot of customization option for each of these categories. You can play around with these settings to create a variation of grass that would suit your architectural design. I'm just adjusting the sun using the environment tab to see how the materials look when light falls on it. We will look at this environment option in detail in the later parts of this video. We have a water texture to add on the pool on top of the villa, and just like the other materials, we have different options to choose from and different levels of customization as well. Onto these lights on the ceiling, we just have to click the material and turn on the emissive on the right side. We can adjust the intensity of the emissive, change the color or temperature of the lighting.
We've added textures to all the elements in the design, and the next process is to populate the scene using vegetation, trees, human figures and more.
Go to Assets on top, and under the Model category, we have all kinds of models to choose from. Let's start with the trees, and when you click Nature, the trees are classified on the typology. Let's go into the Broadleaf category, and we can notice that this is quite an extensive library to choose from. All of these are provided their scientific names, so as architects, it might be important to actually understand what are the different categories and species of trees that are used for different kinds in architectural purposes. Like the materials, this also has to be downloaded, so when you click a tree, it gets downloaded automatically. To add it into the model, we just have to double click it and it shows up on the viewport. Let's place the tree on the right side, and we just have to click it to place it. Once we place it, we have an orbit icon like this. We can move the object using this orbit icon, either move it around freely or use these arrows to move it in the X, Y or Z direction. We can also see that each object that we add into the scene becomes a separate layer which is shown on the left side.
Adding vegetation individually might be a tedious process, which is why D5 offers 3 different ways to add them quickly. Let's look at each of them.
Head over to the tools on top, and first up we have the brush option. When you click the brush option, the asset library opens up, and here we need to choose the models that we want to use as brushes. Right now I have 2 tree models that I've selected. All we have to do is to just draw over the areas where we want to apply these trees. We have the brush history option on the right side, using which we can copy the brush stroke or delete the trees in this brush history. Next up, we have the second option, which is the scatter tool. So let's select the scatter and choose the trees which we like to use. Once selected, we just need to click on an area, and this will scatter the selection of trees around that area. These can again be edited using the brush history tool. The third one is the path tool, which comes in really handy. Once the path tool is selected, we need to choose the starting point and the ending point in the model. As we place this path, the models that we selected gets added along this line. The customization option includes adjusting the number of trees, direction, spacing, offset and so on. And you can always go back to this path selection and make adjustments whenever you want. In case you want to resize any object, just select the object and use these sliders on the right side, or an alternative is to press V and your orbit should look like this. We can click and drag any of these axes to resize them along those directions. We'll be making a render of the elevation view, so I'm placing the trees accordingly on the background. We can adjust the heights or position to make it go well with the scene we are intending to create. Let's head over to the right side where we'll be creating another scene, and to fill up the scene and the background, we can use the path tool to add conifer trees in the background. Let's add some small trees in the foreground to create a nice framing.
Another easier way to fill the far ends of the background is by using the backdrop elements. These are located in the assets inside the models. So head over to backdrop plane, and inside that we have different categories of 2D elements that can be placed in the far end of the background. Let's choose the autumn trees and place them at the end of the site. Let's adjust the scale and position to fit in with the scene. Apart from the trees, D5 offers a huge collection of assets that can really enhance a scene and add a different dimension to our project. And there are tons of models under each category. As of now, D5 claims to have more than 13,000 models, materials and particles in this extensive library.
Let's add a variation of stones around the main scene to create an interesting feature. And from the reference image, we have kind of a handrail made from stones and wooden tree trunks placed on top. So let's try to recreate that from the D5 asset library. Under the vehicles category, we again have a large category of vehicles to choose from. For this scene, let's choose a bicycle to add into the frame. Another interesting and time-saving asset that D5 offers is the parallax. Head over to the interior parallax, and this offers both commercial and residential options. From the residential parallax, let's choose an interior similar to a living room and place it in the interior of the model. This saves us a lot of time and effort in creating an interior scene which might not be very needed for an exterior scene. Let's again use the path tool to add a variation of short plants in front of the elevation. I'm looking to add a bunch of white flowering plants in front of the scene that could create a nice focal point. So I placed them in front of the scene and also added them into a group for easier selection. Similarly, let's place a variation of shrubs on the left and right side of the elevation, and this is based on the framing that we're intending to create. Now to create a scene, we have the option to create it from this option on the left side. Or if you already set your scene in SketchUp, you can import that directly into D5. Let's head over to the SketchUp model, and in the D5 toolbar, click the fourth option, which will send the scene directly into the D5 software. So we have 3 scenes that we're trying to render for this project. Let's also add some trees on the far end of the right side, which should be visible from this view right here. We can also adjust the field of view and focal point from the camera settings right here.
Let's place some characters to add life into our scene.
In D5, we have multiple categories of human figures to add, and they also offer frequent updates to these models. So for this view, let's pick something from this category called slightly moving. Under the animals category, let's add some birds flying above the building. Let's add a car, but placing it in front might be a little too big for this scene. So let's place it on the side and make it slightly visible in the scene. Like all the other assets and materials, we can also adjust the settings of the car. We have options to change the color, lighting, and so on. And finally, we also have another category called particles. Under this, we have a lot of environmental settings and add-ons that could add some realism and dynamic character to the scene. Since we have a lot of trees around, let's pick a falling leaves and place it on the right side.
Now back to another AI feature, and this one is actually mind-blowing. If you looked at some of our previous videos, we've been exploring a lot of AI platforms where you type in a prompt and it creates images. Now imagine you do the same and you type in a prompt and it creates 3D models. And this is exactly what this tool is all about.
Right next to the assets, we have the option called Text to 3D. You can type in a prompt and create small 3D models that are unique to your project. This comes with a credit which needs to be separately applied from the D5 platform. Here are some examples of this tool being used.
Even though this is still in its initial stages, there is great potential of how AI can be implemented in not just images but also in 3D models. Another great feature that really sets D5 apart is the scatter tool. Let's dive into it.
To use the scatter tool, we first need to select a material. In this example, let's try the scatter tool on the grass. For the time being, let me turn off the grass material. The scatter tool can be accessed from the toolbar on the top. Choose the scatter tool and pick select material. Let's select the grass material. Once we pick a material, we see blue highlights over it. Head over to assets, and on the last category, we have an option called scatter. What we see here are presets that we can apply over the selection. Let's pick one, and we can see that it's getting applied throughout the selection. These are nothing but individual 3D models that have been put together in specific presets and applied throughout the selection. This is a very quick way to add vegetation to larger areas. And the best part is, each and every aspect of this scatter tool is fully customizable. So let's look at them in detail. As I mentioned, this scatter preset is a combination of different 3D plants that are listed on the right side. You can hide individual plants from the scatter or remove them if you need. Also, we can select each individual plant and customize the settings according to our needs. Now let's remove this scatter and try adding a new one. This time, instead of adding a preset, let's go to this drop down called Image Divide. Click on this white image right here, and this will open a wide range of presets. Upon selecting each of these, we notice that the pattern of the preset gets applied into the selection. There are quite a lot of patterns, and what does these patterns do? You guessed it right. These patterns create a segregation or a layout in the initial grid selection that we saw. And inside each division, we can fully customize the preset just like how we saw previously. So those divisions actually become a sub-area. As we can see in this example, we have 2 different sub-areas, and we can customize the scatter and add individual plants to both of these areas. This gives a great level of variation when we have large areas of landscape to be rendered. And if that wasn't enough, we can actually add a separate preset to each of these individual sub areas to affect how they would be visible in the model. These are going to be extremely handy in projects that involves landscaping. So with the scatter setting, I have customized two varieties of grass, and I've also added this sunflower that creates a highlight along this grass volume. We can adjust the number of flowers using this option called probability of occurrence. For this scene from the right side, I would be populating it by using a separate scatter option and a bunch of rocks that are skewed around the site. And speaking of landscaping, we have yet another powerful tool that can add creepers and vines in a realistic way. Let's head over to Assets, Model, and under Vine category, let's pick one. Once you pick that, it shows an icon and you can place it on any location where you want to generate a vine. I'm picking this corner of the building, and once we placed it, we can use the rotate option to point it in the direction on which we want to create these vines. Once you're happy with the angle, click the generate option on the right side. And as you can see, this option has created a free-flowing vines and leaves in this specific direction. And of course, these are customizable as well. We have options to change the scale, leaf density, to name a few. We also have the option called random, and this generates a random cluster in the angle that we selected. This can save us a lot of time in the post-production in case you want to add organic leaves into the rendering.
The final step in creating a rendering is to work on the environment. Using D5, we have 4 different ways to create realistic environment in a short span of time. And of course, we have something that involves artificial intelligence as well.
The very first thing that we need to do is to head over to Display and choose Precise in case your setting isn't smooth, and choose the scene setting and turn off the auto exposure. With that, we're ready to get started.
The first technique to create an environment is by adjusting the geo and sky.
On the right side, we have the Environment tab, and under that, we have Geo and Sky. Using this option right here, we can adjust the sun angle and move it around at different times of the day. Right below, we have the option called North Offset, which can be used to fine-tune the angle further. And just in case you need a precise sun angle, you can adjust that using the month and day setting, and also the longitude and latitude. You can play around with it to figure out the best lighting settings for your model and scene. Just in case you want to fully customize the sun settings, you can turn on the custom sun. This will give you full flexibility to adjust the sun angle however you want. Furthermore, we have settings to turn on the clouds and also adjust the amount, thickness, and density to name a few. We also have the fog, which might be useful for larger scenes. The wind setting can be used to render videos. And lastly, we have the precipitation setting, which can be adjusted to create rain or snow.
The second way to create lighting in D5 is by using the HDRI settings.
That is located right next to the Geo and Sky. D5 comes with inbuilt HDRIs, which can be selected from this drop-down right here. We can choose the one that we like from this settings, and that will directly affect the scene on which we're working on. This is a really quick way to achieve great lighting with the least time spent. Each of these have a great variety, and once we choose between these, we can see that it completely changes the mood of the scene. And of course, the HDRI is customizable as well. We can adjust the lighting and rotate the angle to see which fits best for our scene. You can also adjust the sun settings within this HDRI, and you can customize that as well. Then we have the fog, wind, and precipitation, same as what we saw previously.
The third and most interesting way to create an environment in D5 is by using an AI tool called AI Atmosphere Match.
Head over to this option on the top right, and that opens the AI Atmosphere Match. You can upload any reference image of an architectural scene, and for this, I'll be using this autumn scene to begin with. Click this option of Snap Current View and choose Start Generating. Once done, you can choose the Apply option, and this tool applies the setting of the reference image into your main scene. As you can see, within a few seconds, the Atmosphere Match option has taken the style of this autumn scene and added it into our render. Similarly, let's try it again, and this time, let's upload a cloudy night scene. This gives a completely new look to the rendering. Here are the results, and this can be a great way to try different styles of visualization to see what works best for the project.
This can come in really handy when you want to create stylized renders in a short span of time. You can also use this to match a render style from a reference image. The fourth way to create lighting is by using the environmental effects available in the D5 Studio.
The Studio option is located on the top left. Select the Studio option, and under D5 Curated, we have a category called Environment Effect. These are a bunch of presets that you can download and apply to your scene. Just double click any of these and it gets applied directly into your scene. D5 offers a wide variety of environment effects, and these are really tailored to your scene, whether it's an interior, exterior, a modern facade, a traditional building, and so on. And similar to all the other settings, you can always adjust and customize the environment and the sun angle. And after you're happy with the environment, you can adjust the effects of this scene by heading over to the effects tab. You can play around with the shadows, contrast, white balance, and other similar effects. Usually, after the rendering is done, it is then taken into Photoshop where we do post-production to add these settings. But that process is further minimized by using D5, where most of the required settings is available within the software.
Let's look at how to export a render image from D5.
Once you're happy with the lighting and environment, you can then export it as an image from this option on top. That opens up the camera settings, and using this, we can adjust the presets for our export image. We have different aspect ratios to choose from and preset sizes starting from 2K up to 16K. This will again depend on your computer graphics. We can adjust the field of view and focal length here as well. And once you're happy with the camera settings, you can render it from the option on the right side. Let's export a 4K image, and it takes about 2 minutes on my computer to render it.
Similarly, creating an animated walkthrough video using D5 is a very simple process as well.
We have the video option on the top right, and once you choose that, it opens a bunch of templates for the camera movement. So we don't really need to spend time in creating a smooth animation because these presets will do the job. Just double click on a preset and it gets added on the timeline. You can add multiple presets on a single timeline, or you can create additional clips for separate videos. The export option gives us up to 4K resolution and a frame rate of 30 or 60 frames per second. Once you're happy with the timeline and settings, you can click export to render the video. Similarly, I also rendered the other views using the same render settings and created animations of the same. Here's the final result, and let me know what you think.
This is probably one of the longest tutorials that I've made, and there are still a lot of features to be explored in D5. Hopefully, this gave you an overview of the important features to begin with. I've been using D5 for long hours, and it really makes the visualization process enjoyable. And with this software, anyone can create a great looking render in a short span of time. With the constant updates that we're seeing with every version in D5, there is definitely going to be a lot of AI tools that are going to be integrated with the software. So this platform is definitely going to harness the power of artificial intelligence. The Pro version of D5 is exclusively available with a 5% discount if you're watching this video. Check out the link in the description to make use of it. I hope you found this video to be helpful, and if you did, please hit that like button and share this with your friends. You can follow me on Instagram and the handle is right here. I'll see you on the next one.